Coming up next week on Sirius Joy TV. Peace as a power move? That's what Sensei Christopher and co-host psychic medium Scott Cruz will be chatting about on the next Leading Out Loud. The best in enlightened entertainment, only on Sirius Joy TV.
This week, the human race shifts to a human pace. It's time to determine what is a fair idea of your future, and this will determine if your future is fair to you. All that and more on Namaste Today. Welcome to Namaste Today with the Soul Horoscopes and the Zodiac weather. I'm your host. I'm also the Master Astrologer and the creator of the Guardian Angel. One time for top. Hi, welcome to Namaste Today. I'm your host, Sensei Christopher Witecki. I'm also a Master Astrologer. Let's do one more time. Hi, welcome to Namaste Today. I'm your host, Sensei Christopher Witecki. I'm a Master Astrologer, and I'm the guardian channel of the Step Astrology system. I've been coaching on YouTube now for about 19 years. And I got to tell you, the upcoming year is probably the most profound and important work I've ever done. And I'm excited to start the work, and I'm glad that we are golden and seasoned for this process. Now, this next year is going to be important for many reasons, and there'll be many changes. You might notice that actually with our show. We'll be making some changes in tonight's show, and we're curious what your opinion is on the changes. We'd like to hear back from you because Namaste Today officially as a title will be retiring. A new show will be born in its place with all the things you've liked in the sense of learning about the astrology, but some new nuances that focus more on you, which is the most important aspect we believe. And tonight we have a remarkable show for you because this week turns out to be one of the most important weeks you've ever lived because it comes down to being fair to yourself once and for all. And we'll talk about what that leads to the world's fairness and justice as well. But before we do that, please be kind and do subscribe to our YouTube channel, siriusjoy.academy. Hit the bell button and make sure that you are notified. And if you don't mind, please like our channel and like also our video. And if you're watching on any of our other platforms, please be so kind as to leave a comment. Leaving a comment shows the universe of algorithms that we are here to stay. And boy, are we. We're about to do 20 years total. But before we talk about truth and justice in your life, let's take a look at the week's moods and your zodiac weather.
Thanks, Sensei. This Zodiac weather report covers from Saturday, October 18th to Friday, October 24th, 2025, and is proudly sponsored by Gwen English's Heart Speak Oracle. 40 Days of Truth and Purpose is back for Scorpio season, and so is your personal Oracle deck. Join Sirius Joy's Gwen English for her popular new course supplement and ignite your creative path. Together, you will create a beautiful 42-card deck that complements Sirius Joy's 40 Days of Truth and Purpose. Receive artistic guidance and deep meditation to truly let your heart speak its truth. Register now at siriusjoy.academy. Looking ahead at your weekend forecast, now that there has been a realization this past week about how to upgrade, we take this new concept to Spirit for consideration on Saturday and make a full-blown commitment on Sunday. Let's drill down. On Saturday, it's sunny and hopeful as Step 25 rules the day, giving Spirit the mic and allowing supernatural sensitivity in order to pick up sense data. A moon in Virgo brings all of it down to terra firma and actionable steps. The root intention is I receive divine connection and affirm today that I am elevating daily practices to align with Spirit. There will be an extra boost today in your divine practice as Mars in Scorpio trines the North Node at 17 Pisces. Give the self some grace and take some time and space for listening wholeheartedly today. On Sunday, it's sunny and certain as Step 26 Net 8 means it is time to take a day to craft an agreement for a new relation to the world. The root intention is I receive direction as a moon in Libra is checking for balance in all plans. To help, affirm that the heart is my compass, recalibrating with the divine, as today wants to open that heart to find that just right feeling that is committable for you. The mind is on your side today, as at 4:32 a.m., Mercury follows Mars in trining the North Node at 17 Pisces, so put all logic into the heart for processing. Taking a sneak peek at the upcoming week, the decision builds to a masterful new moon in Libra on Tuesday, followed by entering into the dark waters of Scorpio. So expect those plans for the new relationship in the world to be triple checked from Soul by week's end. The week begins with focus and launch on Monday and Tuesday, tests on Wednesday, and a deep reckoning with the heart on Friday. Let's drill down. On Monday, it's sunny and focused. We are getting it done on this Step 27 Mars ruled day, so whatever has been committed to on Sunday means action taken today. Good thing, too, is we have a conjunction of Mercury and Mars at 19 Scorpio early, so the mind is motivated with the plan. A moon in Libra keeps the balance by feeling out the right time and place. Intend that I receive drive and affirm that a new karmic perspective ignites transformation, as letting go to move forward may be the flavor of the day. Tuesday is sunny and defining as a new moon in Libra opens this Step 28 day, building on the actions taken yesterday to relate to the world in a new way. A strong foundation rests on what the heart wants to feel, so decide the best way to be that meets those requirements. Intend that I receive approval, as today you are opening to receiving your own, and affirm that I am accepting relationship changes for self, other, and future. Just keep holding that note. Wednesday is partly cloudy and searching. Tested Step 29 rules the day, which puts Chiron, the wounded healer, in the driver's seat. This may bring up a lot of vulnerability, but also some new perspectives on healing long-standing issues. Neptune also regresses from 0 Aries to 29 Pisces today, directly touching the sun and giving a double dose of possible frustration. Intend that I receive equanimity, as a moon in Scorpio is feeling out what to remove in order to keep most valuable. Affirm that I am striking a balance between process and mastery, as healing is happening. Just act on keeping your own feelings in check before responding to everyone else's. Thursday is cloudy with scattered storms as the sun moves into the I protect state of awareness, Scorpio. So prepare for the plunge into the feelings abyss. Take time and space today to consider this transit and what may be ready to alchemize in your life. Intend that I protect transformation and affirm that I am holding space for uncomfortable growth. With the moon also in the late degrees of Scorpio, there will be a lot of feelings, but also some deep insight. Take time and space to protect. At 6:19 p.m., Jupiter and Chiron come into its first square, signifying healing response through emotional expansion. Use this to fuel your deep discovery. Friday is cloudy and captivated. The sun is at Step 1 Scorpio, feeling directly into what the heart wants and maybe some of what it doesn't. Big news as the sun squares off with Pluto today, bringing up a lot of static regarding belonging in the world versus what is wanting to be cut away. Intend that I protect my birthright, as today is asking to double down on the self-love no matter how the past may have informed your response. Affirm that I am accepting the heart's wishes, thinking forward despite fears, as at 11:07 a.m., Mercury in Scorpio trines Jupiter at 24 Cancer, allowing the mind to be supportive of feeling safe accepting that love. So don't hold back. So while feelings may be tested, there is definitely help on the way, just as long as you know what to protect. Back to you, Sensei.
This week, we're wrapping up the sun in Libra. I have to say it's been a very dramatic Libra season. And this last week may be just as dramatic because we have a new moon that tops it off at the end of the week. Dramatic meaning Libra is probably the most flexible energy there is. And so when you have a year like we've had, which has been intense, a lot of karma, a lot of facing of our issues, and you get to this nice light Libra, the scale's tipped. That's what I've noticed with a lot of people. And it's been difficult for people to get back on that horse, so to speak. In fact, that's what we call this month pulling apart and coming together. Well, I hope this is the week where we come together, because we mostly pulled apart within ourselves and also in relationships as well. Now, this week in particular, we're calling this week Revolutionizing Trust based on self-love. And this is what it all comes down to. It comes down to self-love, which has been represented by Pluto. Pluto at Step 1 has been there for so long. I don't even have the total dates. But we went back in our history and we found that we could not find anywhere in the last 2,500 years, honestly, where planets were focused on self-love like they have been. We'd see no point ever that's been this way. So it's kind of like an obvious sort of clue to the age of Aquarius that's authentic. But that push for self-love means that you have to face all these things that throw you off balance. You have to face the shadow. You have to go forward and, stand up for yourself. And I think that's a big part of what the revolution is about. As much as we want to make it about our life and how things are out of balance or things are not the way we want, it comes down to the revolution of loving yourself on a higher level, which I have to say, even myself, I've been sort of, captured by it. in these last degrees of Libra, from 25 until 29, this is the real test, because this is where you're going to sort of intuit what your relationship to the future is going to be. Now, that may sound a little simple, but it's not. We actually take that point of view in Libra. Have you noticed that every year around Christmas or so, you start having an attitude about the next year, whether you're hoping that it'll be good, or you're worried that it won't be good, or you're holding out for some political thing, or the government shutdown, things like that? Well, astrology shows that that attitude really starts in Libra. And what happens is, in this particular week of Libra, this is when you're going to sort of decide what your relationship to the future is. And here's the thing. What we believe here at Serious Joy is that what you decide is what it will be. So we're encouraging you to hold that space. And that's where the challenge comes in, to really hold that diplomatic tone with your own life. So Saturday and Sunday, you're coming to a conclusion over the weekend that it's time to sort of have faith and be committed or devoted to the relationship to the future you want. So in other words, is your life going to be a happy one? Is your life going to be an unhappy one? Now, you may talk simply as the next year, but because of the planets right now, it's going to likely be what sets for a while. So we go into that. And then on Monday, it's time to make that action happen. And then on Tuesday, we have the new moon at step 28 Libra. Now, step 28, by the way, is a phenomenal manifestation degree. It is the degree where things are made. So if I were to put like the formation of a government or the formation of a major corporation that ends up doing powerful things, you'd want to do it on a step 28 day. By the way, this is the first of 6 28 days, new moons we have. We have 6 months following Libra. So for every month, for 6 consecutive months, the universe is saying, let's build it a new way. Let's do it a new way. Libra is probably the most gentle. Scorpio next month will be more intense. But what it means is, in that 28th degree, you are sort of saying, okay, I feel and believe that this is the direction I want my life to go. And so it is. Then Wednesday, we are challenged by step 29, where things are thrown off. So there's a big challenge. And then boom, we plow into Scorpio on Thursday and Friday. And that's going to feel like a big plunge, because things get a lot more serious with Scorpio. Now, with that said, I think energetically for all the 12 signs, it comes down to really 3 points that we want to talk about this week in your horoscopes.
This Scorpio season, embark on a journey of self-discovery. Create your soul manifesto. Unveil your purpose. Live your truth. Welcome to 40 Days of My Truth and Purpose. Enrolling now, only at Sirius Joy Academy.
I think the best way to look at these horoscopes this week is to first understand, where are you as a sign holding space for this new future perspective. I think you need to understand it'll happen in one part of your life. So for instance, for Tauruses, it's in our lifestyle and work, right? So holding space for that to get together will turn the rest of life in order. And for each of 12 signs, it'll be somewhere else where you have to hold that space. Then we'll talk about the new moon in Libra and how this kicks off 6 months of 28-degree new moons. And how this beginning one is the most important, because in this first new moon, you are basically determining the relationship to all futures, at least for the next 6 months. And these 28s that follow all sort of copycat it in different states of awareness. So right now it's in Libra. So what's our relationship? Then next month, 28 Scorpio, boom, those are the boundaries. And then next month, 28 Sagittarius, boom, that's the story you find yourself telling. That's what the legacy will be. That's what the arc of the character will be. And then, of course, Capricorn, boom, make it so, make the law around it. And Aquarius, let's rise to the occasion. And then Pisces, and so it is with the karma. So we literally flush out in the next 6 months how we want the world to be, believe it or not. And thankfully, I don't think the world will start to go to real hell until about the end of those new moons, ironically. So almost like you could say they're actually pushing that event. Then the last thing we'll talk about is the Sun square Pluto. And for each of 12 signs where you are having to draw boundaries with yourself in order to be able to self-love. That square means for you that you're having a hard time staying that self-love if you don't draw some boundaries in the place where Pluto is. So I'll talk about for all 12 signs that happens to be for you. But first, let's talk about our trailblazers, the first of the signs of the zodiac, the Aries. Aries, it's been interesting to watch you. And I've been talking to our producers before we started shooting here, and it's almost like you're out of a job because for, the age of Aries and the age of Pisces, Aries were number one because they were strong and they pushed things. They made things happen. And then suddenly comes in the law of attraction, which is literally the opposite of your force, not pushing anymore, but pulling things in. And so now that robots will fight wars and, robots will lift up heavy things, like what is an Aries to do? And I think that's part of the problem going into relationships. For Libra, for you, it's been about finding your place in relationships. And now, since the dawn of Aries, women have become equal, right? That wasn't always the case. So Aries were sort of the head of household, and now they're sharing it. Lots of changes. But I feel what it comes down to is accepting things. Accepting yourself. That was the beginning of the transit. Having to learn how to just accept who you are and what your changes are, and not judging yourself or pushing yourself or putting these, supercalifragilistic expectations on yourself, which you tend to do. And then we moved into Libra part 2, where it's okay, now balancing, being good to yourself. Now, how do you approach relationships? And then this third decade, all right, how you approach marriage and partnership, this is how you approach your whole future. You sort of really feel like you're in partnership with the future. And that comes from partly your egomaniac, part of Aries, where you are ego consciousness. And so it is all about you. And so, of course, your relationship to people and to everything is the way the world will work or not work. So you are through relationships. What does this mean specifically? It means if you master your relationships, you'll master the future, really. And that's just being who you are in the moment, honoring your space, staying in balance with yourself, making sure all those marriage vows are in place as well. So I think this final week for you is really kind of putting the finishing touches on a marriage and partnership philosophy, which happens to also be the way you relate to the future going forward. And I think you should literally be open. Be open. It's not about being closed now. It's about being closed, about being open, if you wanted to kind of go inside out there. So that's the 7th moving into the 8th. Now, what happens is with that new moon in Libra, you're sort of writing your marriage vows. Like you're writing the formula for what all partnership will be. And it's not just romantic. It would be professional, how you partner with your own children, how you partner with colleagues at work, how you partner, okay? And maybe that's it. You're a partner now. I think Aries were often the boss by force, quite often, because you were the heaviest, you were the strongest, you were the Hercules that would kick their ass or the gladiator. And now you have to work on this complete diplomatic part. And the irony is now that you are the strongest, really, of all the zodiacs, you'll like fight to the dying end. But now the strength has to be being yourself, staying authentic and not letting that get wiped away. So what you want to do is commit to the feeling you want to be in every relationship, like the generic feeling you want to bring to that table, whether it's a relationship to work, relationship to your, partnerships, relationship to your children. They should all have a certain tone, a tone that includes your heart's intentions and a tone that includes the best for all. I think that's the new moon intention for you. Now, with the Sun in Scorpio square Pluto, this is a biggie for you because ultimately Scorpio is, you're the core of the, legitimate. So the way you operate is the basis of astrology, by the way. So you live that truth. So Scorpio is boundaries. It is trust in yourself. And I think that there's been issues with trusting yourself due to the fact that there was not self-love behind your boundaries. So the Pluto square for you has to really do with your place in society. You might be finding that you just aren't really being acknowledged, or maybe no one buys the new you, or maybe people are questioning the new you. And it's not that, it's just it's not formed yet, to be honest. And this square is going to be part of that formation. This square is going to say, hey, it's time to now reconcile how self-love, first of all, turns into trusting yourself. So if you love yourself, you will trust yourself. And then if you do trust yourself, well, then by golly, you can trust yourself in the world and trust yourself where you go from there. So by loving yourself and loving every boundary you put on yourself, you'll find a natural place of where you sit in society and where you don't. Taurus, your Libra energy comes down to your lifestyle. And it's funny because I don't think people realize this. Tauruses look stable. They look grounded. They look determined. They're this, huge weight that you can't even tip, right? You can't push them over. But the truth is Tauruses don't feel that way day to day. We feel like we're a bull in a rowboat, like we're constantly trying to get our balance in a boat. when we belong on the ground, right? But we use air, Libra, in order to determine how our daily life unfolds. And this begins, first of all, with your relationship to your health. So the way you treat your health, whether or not your health is in balance, this is huge because this turns into the balance of your daily life and all of the things that happen in life. And the truth is that I think, at least for me, I can't speak for y'all, but I fall out of balance because I overinvest. I'm a producer. I can make things. I'm a Taurus. I can manifest. And I tend to just try to over manifest. I mean, I basically exploit my talent and take it too far. So that's where I fall out of balance. I've known some Tauruses are lazy and don't do shit. Some, but it's very rare. But then the third decan of Libra, which is the one we were talking about here in the intro, this is actually your lifestyle. So what's the style of your life? Is it elegant? Is it graceful? Is it hard work? Are you working in the caves or, in the coal mines? Like, what's it like being you day to day? What's that style like? Is there any style in it, right? Well, that happens to be the way you will approach all of the future. So Tauruses will paint their future to match their lifestyle. If their lifestyle is chaotic, they'll assume the future will be chaotic. If their lifestyle is calm, they'll accept the best and assume the best. So the secret to really manifesting your life and everything you want is in that lifestyle, perfecting the process, not the outcome. Now, with that said, the step 28 new moon says, hey, on this date, you need to emotionally commit to the feeling. What is the feeling you're going to commit to that life will be every day in your daily lifestyle? That's work, marriage, kids, the whole 9 yards, right? What does that feel like? Because that's the beginner's new moon. Then from there, from changing that lifestyle, you take that basic lifestyle and it's going to apply now to relationships. And once you have relationships balanced, it'll be a new moon when it comes to trust and intimacy. How close do you get to those people, the relationships? And then from that, it'll be to your life purpose. So basically, your life purpose is based on your boundaries, your relationships, yourself, and the way you live in daily life. That's how it all adds up. And then, of course, this transit ends beyond that with your purpose, then your career in Aquarius, and then finally your social reputation. So what we're saying is your social reputation is based on the way you live your lifestyle. Did you have any idea? Well, that's how it goes. Now, the square with Pluto is also fascinating because the square says to you, it's time now to get it really right, okay? Your heart to love yourself in your marriage. If you love yourself in your marriage, you'll love yourself in your career and your legacy. And if you love yourself in your career, your legacy, it will take off to where you want to go. So what the astrology is saying is if your career hasn't gone the way you want to, it could be that you're not loving yourself in your marriage. And that's going to be the power. And by the way, with Pluto and Aquarius, you'll be climbing your career and innovating for at least 10 more years. So hang in there. It's a long ride. Gemini, I've been talking a lot about you. Have your ears been burning? Because I've been really focused on you as a compelling moment. Now for you, Libra energy is your heart. So when it comes to Geminis, this is where you guys are unstable. People don't know it, but you're back and forth. Your heart's back and forth, worried about this, hoping for that, not knowing if it's going to turn out. Will your dreams come true? Will you find your love? Will your kids be okay? You go back and forth like a teeter-totter with that. That's where you're very sensitive and flexible. If you've been loved by a Gemini, you know how sweet they are and diplomatic they are. Their heart has just like this true expression, which you don't always see, especially with the brainiac Geminis, right? You don't even know if they have a heart. But then you see them in a relationship. Oh, they do. They're softies, right? Well, it comes down to that first decan of Libra, which we did at the beginning of Libra. How well you love yourself. You're the epitome of that. You must be the most fair to yourself. You must give yourself the most credit. You must be the most open to your heart than you are to anything else. Your heart, okay? If you're open to your heart, you accept that, then you move on to creative projects, children, personal dreams, expression of yourself. That all becomes in good balance. And then the third decan, which is where we're at, is personal dreams. So get this, Gemini. Geminis will not believe in the future if they're not moving on their personal dreams. If you're not actively moving on your personal dreams. By the way, I told you, son, my son is just like, I figured out, Dad. Like, you understand, the whole future is based on this. It's true. You know, Geminis need to dream. They have to be dreaming. And it's a good place for your mind anyways, because you can go off in weird, wasting brain cells, honestly, on things. And really, if you're just dreaming, imagining things, it's more likely to happen. So this week, it's very important that you are clear about what your dreams are, that you expect for them to happen, and have them to every detail and every color that you ever have wanted to, by the way. They should be unfolding perfectly, right? And that new moon, all right, that happens at 28 degrees, this sets a huge trend set for everything up to Pisces, which is your career. So your potential to hold space for a feeling about personal dreams, you want to find the feeling of what you believe and imagine your dreams coming true will feel like. What does it feel like for your dreams to come true? What is that like? How excited are you? What are you thinking about? Paint that image on that new moon, all right? Because that turns into how your lifestyle turns out, how your partnerships turn out, how trust and intimacy happens, your life purpose, and then finally your career. So literally, it makes sense, really. Your career is entirely based on your personal dreams. Now, that's not usually the case, honestly. You have not been doing that for a long time. And that was a topic I was actually bringing up with other people. It's like, Geminis haven't really been on the map for like a good 500 years. I'm not kidding. You've not been in your power just by the nature of how things have gone with the planets. But now it's time to return to your power. Gemini is going to come in full force, especially with Uranus in Gemini, climbing the staircase, raising your intellect to higher and higher dimensions. Now, that said, the square with Pluto. Then on the following, the end of the week, that's square with Pluto. When the sun goes into Scorpio at 0 degrees, this is how you live in the moment in your daily life. If you don't live in a moment of self-love, where you just love yourself, and that's your first step in the day, which also means loving your body, by the way, then you're going to find that you have a very difficult time believing in life. All right. So what this chart shows with this square is loving yourself in the moment means you believe in yourself in the moment. To love yourself is to believe in yourself. And if you've had a hard time believing in yourself, it wasn't the facts. It wasn't the theories. It was that you weren't loving yourself in the moment. Cancers. Cancers, this may shock you, but that is an example of why things have not gone correctly for you like the way you have wanted to. And that is that Libra is what you use to manage your feelings. I know. And that's the irony. Cancers are so good at helping other people with their feelings. So good at it. I mean, if I had to be stuck somewhere and I was emotionally upset, I choose a Cancer, hands down, to be there with me, because the Cancer is just so caring and there, but not to yourself. The first decan of Libra is how you relate to your own feelings. So when it comes to feelings, you are back and forth, and you don't appear that way when you're nurturing others and caring for others and being that, metaphorical mom, basically. But that's what it comes down to. So the first decan of Libra was time to get a balance on your feelings. And feelings are not something you can apply your mind to. Feelings are not something you can apply your ego to. Feelings are not something you can blame your marriage on. Feelings are just between you and you. And I think you learned that this year more than you ever have, especially with the nodes. Now, that said, the second decan is how you manage the feelings of life. And how you manage yours determines how well you manage life. And then the third decan, which is what we're at this week, is your emotional security. So your capacity to feel emotionally secure or not, safe or not, grounded or not, is what basically determines your entire outlook on the future. If you don't feel grounded in your home and grounded in your life, you feel like the world is collapsing. And so you can actually feel much better about the president and everything else if you just actually focus on feeling good about yourself, feeling good about your life. That will change everything. So for you, it's more than anyone. This new moon at 28 degrees, this new moon is saying, how do you want your life to feel when it comes to security? What does security feel like? What's it feel like to feel secure? And think about it. Like you're going to the movies, your life feels secure. What's it feel like? You're taking the kids to school, your life is secure. What's it feel like? That's the new moon. And because it's the first of 6 new moons, that will determine whether or not your personal dreams happen, whether or not your daily life falls into focus, your marriage falls into focus in partnerships, your trusted intimacy falls into focus, and your life purpose, like your whole meaning of life, all comes down to whether or not you feel secure in your daily life. So it's time to nurture yourself first, because you may think you're a good nurturer now, but if you came to the table fully nurtured, I think there's some real power and talent there that's been repressed. Now, the square is also very interesting, because the square of the sun in Scorpio says, you must now love yourself and protect that, period. The self-love thing has got to be 100%. Now, if you're going to be a leader of self-care, if you're going to be a leader of care for others, if you're going to be super mom or super dad on the planet, well, then obviously you have to love your inner child more than anything. If you claim to be a nurturer of children, you've got to love your inner child 100%, right? Well, it also turns out to your ability to trust yourself. The square in Pluto says, you're not going to trust yourself if you don't love yourself. You just aren't. So loving yourself is what leads to trust. And by the way, trusting others is right around the corner. So if you don't love yourself, you won't trust yourself, you won't trust others. It all comes down to nurturing and loving yourself. Leos, you may not know this, but Libra is how you approach your thoughts. So you are this great king or great queen. You look fabulous in every little selfie you do. Your social media is blowing up, but little people know your mind is back and forth like a cuckoo clock, right? Back and forth. Oh, weighing this and weighing that, and really overjudging yourself all the time. Self-judgment is crazy in a Leo. So that first decan of Libra is really how you talk to yourself. How you talk to yourself, how you respond to yourself, that voice that you never share with anyone. And we see you. You sit there with your eyes all glossing like you're a superstar, but inside your mind is being brutal, because I've gotten to know some Leos. I've dated a lot of Leos. I got to say, Leo rising. I do it myself too. How you talk to yourself comes down to everything. If you are more mean to yourself than you are nice, your life is out of balance, period. All right. And what happens is the drama in your life that comes from people, that's really comes from the way you talk to yourself. Because then you'll turn around and talk to the other people the way you talk to yourself. And that's when people are like, what? Who the hell are you? Oh, almighty. No, it's not that. It's that you treat yourself like crap. And so at times that slips out to other people, or certain attitudes. If you have low self-esteem in your thoughts, then you'll have low self-esteem in your communication. Then you'll overcompensate. Then you'll worry, blah, 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 back and forth, back and forth. But the third decan of Libra is really important. And that's what we're doing this week. It is your attitude about life. Your attitude that you take, your final attitude, is what determines whether or not you think the future is going to be positive or negative. If you have attitude, then the world is going to collapse. If you have a positive attitude, then everything is like a rainbow, dropping Skittles before your feet so you can live in the life of gold. So your attitude is what you have to craft this week. And mind you, attitude doesn't mean you always are there. It doesn't mean it's like even natural. It may not feel natural. So for instance, if you find yourself going down a bad attitude for a moment, stop and correct it. Just correct the attitude. Make the official word of the royalty to have the right attitude. And remember, attitude is backed by feeling. So attitude is like the mind and then the feeling behind it. Now, what the stars show is that attitude will change to emotional security, personal dreams coming true, lifestyle coming into order, partnerships coming into order, intimacy coming into order, all from the attitude you take on life, which is a derivative of how you talk to yourself. Pretty powerful and a big changing moment. Now, the square happening between the sun and Pluto. Scorpio for you is your emotional foundation. It's how you nurture yourself or don't. All right. So you have to be a pillar to yourself. You've got to love yourself. You've got to emotionally nurture yourself. Basically, it's what you want people to do for you. You always have, unfortunately. I think it's because you come from privileged backgrounds and you come from times where people took really good care of you. But when you're a Leo, you got to actually be your own staff. You got to be your own care. So if you do the loving care, it's not just love, it's the care, taking the care for giving yourself more time, taking the care for giving you time to like adjust to a new place or a new feeling. What that'll turn into are marriage vows. The more you care for yourself, the more you will respect yourself. The more you love yourself in the moment and your feelings and nurture your feelings, the more you'll be positive with yourself when you get into life. And by the way, that self-positivity turns into good relationships. So Leos basically have drawn in the wrong partnerships simply because they have not loved themselves and they've not protected that love for themselves. So imagine just how great your partnership could be if you were a great partner to yourself in emotions. Try it. Virgo, you now with Libra, believe it or not, use this energy to manage your self-worth. My goodness, yes. Whether or not you really worthy of yourself or not worthy of yourself, this is a scale back and forth. You're always weighing whether or not you are valuable or not, and letting that scale go back and forth all the time. For you, it comes down to being fair to yourself. But the problem is you've always been more fair to others, thinking that they'll be like you and be fair back. But that's not how it works, right? Because the people we attract are reflections of who we are. So are not fair to yourself. You attract people who are not fair to themselves. The only difference is they're not Virgos. So they don't give the credit forward like you do. So it's now time to balance your worthiness. And that means that you are supplementing where you don't have. So if you don't feel like you're valuable in one area, invest, bring up the investment. Don't sit there and settle for that bad judgment. Really be in a nice balance of how valuable you feel day to day. That was what the first chapter of Libra is. That determines everything, whether you give yourself credit or not. And by the way, it's only if you give yourself credit. The world doesn't count as far as credit's concerned. That then turns into money, your capacity to earn. And then that turns into what this week is about, abundance. All right. You have abundant ideas. You have abundant things in life that you want. You honestly want twice as much things as most people. I always joke that Virgos are really two Leos wrapped in one as step 11s. And so now it's time to really have a healthy approach to abundance. You are huge in your ideas. You are huge in your capabilities, right? You deserve equal in exchange. You deserve the same for all you put out. You deserve 100% back. It should not be that because you have more, you don't end up getting paid like everyone else. So when you fix that, your approach on abundance, that you deserve what you get, what you put out there, that will actually change your entire approach on the future. What the astrology says is your approach to the future, always at large, is based on your capacity for abundance. So if you are limited and things are hard, you don't have the money to pull off that you want to do, you think the whole life will be that way. The whole approach to life will be that way. You're actually, ironically, as the healers of the Zodiac, you're probably the most materialistic in this sense that if you're not doing well materially, if you're not doing well in your abundance, then you probably don't feel life is going to be good whatsoever, more so than even a Taurus. And I rule abundance, right? Now, that says, once you get the abundance down that you deserve it, then your attitude on life changes, then emotional security changes, then your personal dreams come alive, then your lifestyle comes alive, and then finally, your relationships finally click from the beginning. I know they're clicking now more than they ever have, but they will from the beginning, all from, yes, demanding that you get back from the universe what you put out there. Now, the square, very important. The sun squaring Pluto. The sun is 0 degrees Scorpio. Is for you, your way of talking to yourself, okay? Your thoughts to yourself are not loving enough, period. I don't care what they are. I'll tell you right now, I've never met a Virgo where I felt it was loving enough. In fact, it's love that takes it back right away with criticism and skepticism and doubt. But it's now time to love yourself and own that shit, okay? Put boundaries around it and make every thought you have about yourself be premise of self-love first. If you do that, says the astrology, then what you're going to find is that you end up living in life balanced. The astrology shows that with Pluto and Aquarius, your ability to love yourself in your mind is what generates happiness in daily life or not. It's what generates also your health. So your health is directly linked with this square to your self-love attitude in your mind. So if you love yourself, you will be healthy. And not only will you be healthy, you'll be innovative, bright, and you'll probably be the first ones onto a new solution for daily life. Now, don't forget, you are here to live the new age of Aquarius. Aquarius is your 6th house, house of lifestyle. So as Pluto moves through Aquarius, Virgos will step into a new high vibration life. And as the people who become inconscious, they are the becomers. When you become high vibe, the whole world has to follow because you rule becoming. Libras. Oh, Libra. First of all, happy birthday to you. If I hadn't said so before, it's been a little crazy. But, you know, I don't know how much you study yourself, but Libra nature is your ego. Believe it or not. The one place you get back and forth and kind of crazy with is ego stuff. Your ego going back and forth, overcompensating, undercompensating, overwhelmingly, sometimes going too far and then pulling it back. And most of the time, not far enough. And by the way, it starts with you, the way your ego handles you. Sometimes it's funny. I see Libras, they can just get away with murder with themselves. And then other times they're so hard for the smallest little thing. So you're learning how to be balanced and fair to yourself. That's the irony. You're so balanced and fair to everybody, but not yourself, not in most cases. And by the way, this is the most modern Libras I know. The best ones who are just amazing diplomats in the world, still very unfair to themselves. Maybe that's what makes you a good diplomat, is that you can understand the unfair part more than the fair part. Honestly, that's what you have more track record on. So the astrology shows that when you are fair to yourself, then you are elegant and balanced and beautiful in the moment. This is where you bring out the most refined sort of classical music sort of version of yourself. That's just perfect in that sense. And then in the higher realm, and that's what this week is about, character. Okay. Now, I think that Libras have mistakenly not really been driven toward character. You have, for some reason, made yourself quiet, pulled yourself back, haven't really committed to a certain character per se. You commit to certain values like trust and honesty and things like that, but not the character you want to be. It's always sort of this kind of like not invisible, but just not outspoken. And I think this is changing. As Aries are becoming much more humble, Libras need to be a lot more strong and pronounced and clear about justice. I mean, I don't see justice as something you push over, nor do I see a judge as something you push over. But Libras have been a pushover. I think it's because you haven't been committed to who you are and putting that out there in the world. So this 28-degree commitment for you is, what does it feel like to be you? What's it feel like to be you? I feel if Libras are clear on what it feels like to be them, there'll be more of them in the moment. I think you kind of become invisible. And so what this 28-degree new moon says is, once you're now a character to yourself, then you know what you deserve to earn. You know exactly what attitude to take. You know precisely how to treat yourself. And you know how to go after your personal dreams. And then finally, Pisces, you know how to have a nice lifestyle. So the astrology shows by not being the true character that you are to yourself, you end up messing up your lifestyle. That's how it ends up unfolding. So the last point I want to say is the sun squaring Pluto. The sun in Scorpio is whether or not you love yourself when it comes to your values. I know you love yourself, but do you value loving yourself? And do you value loving yourself as a quality of your value? I don't think you paid attention to that. It's black or white. You either love yourself or you don't. If you do, make it your core value. What's going to happen is that's what determines with the square to Pluto whether or not you love yourself altogether. What the astrology shows, if you don't value yourself with love in the moment, you will not become the character you want to be. You will not become the loving life you want. You will not manifest the personal dreams you want. It's all based on really owning that self-worth value from the get-go. You do that, friend, and your dreams will come true as Pluto moves up through Aquarius. Scorpio. Scorpio, I don't know if you know this, but your sense of fairness and justice comes from your faith. What? I know. Believe it or not, Scorpios are the ones who will fight for justice more than any sign I know. You fight for it. But did you know that's a God-given inspired thing? Not necessarily practical on earth at all. That's where you are. You are holding the justice of fairness as your spiritual morale. That's your morale of spirituality. That's the core of your spirit. And when it comes down to is how much you decide to have faith in yourself. Your faith in yourself teeter-totters like the stock market. It goes back and forth and back and forth. And part of the reason I think is because you're so harsh when you draw a line. It's like, boom, this is the way it is. Then you failed. Then I did well. And so you have these big judgments of how things are, like almost a final, when nothing is final, really. And I think overall, you round down to, I think part of you have integrity. Your core to have integrity. You'll go ahead and just sort of round down just a little bit and say, I don't have full faith in myself yet. I don't have full understanding. And the problem is that that's what kills a lot of things. Because if you're not giving yourself the benefit of doubt and putting more faith in yourself, you're better off putting more in yourself than not. What that turns into is a real faith in life. So faith in life comes down to a faith in yourself. And even more importantly, your life mission. Okay, that's what's important. Because after faith in self comes spirituality in general, and then your mission in life, your spiritual mission in life, what makes you important, what makes you different, which makes why God thinks you're special is this particular mission. And so your mission in life, if it is not feeling strong and clear what you're here to do, then you will not know as things unfold who to be in the moment, what you're worth financially, the attitude to take, whether or not you feel grounded or not, okay? And mostly if your dreams will come true. So true love doesn't come to a Scorpio unless they have their mission in life clear. If they don't know what they're here to do with faith, then they will not know whether or not they'll get love with any faith either. And remember, that faith comes down to a feeling. So there's a feeling. You have a feeling of what you're here to do. That is what you need to focus on. This new moon is, what is the feeling you're here to do? What is that feeling it is? That's what it is. It's okay that it's just a feeling. That's just the way it comes up to the 12th house. Now, that said, the square with the sun, by the way, happy birthday. The square for you is going to be being loving in the way you respond to yourself. If you are not loving in your response to yourself, in other words, if you're not turning yourself and going, oh, hey, honey, I'm so happy with you. If you're not bringing love out in that response, then what the astrology shows us, your emotional security tanks. Your emotional security is completely based on self-love in the moment with your responses. It's not in your head. It's not with what people say to you. It's all in how loving you are when you respond. So I think quite often you're cold, impatient, kind of bludgeoning sometimes in your demands of yourself. And then you flip to the other side, you become you become kind of pissed off at the world and angry because you're not getting what you want. So by loving yourself in every response, you will find that your emotional security starts to just bloom. And when that happens, everything is possible, because most of the reason why I think Scorpios have not done better is because they don't feel well enough nurtured in the 4th house. So be nice to yourself and watch that nurturing go up. Sagittarius. Sagittarius, did you know that your sense of balance comes from your public reputation? I don't think you knew that. It's why you try so hard with people. You really are the most diplomatic of all signs, by the way. If I ever see a sign like jump into a Farsi or speak another language, it's you. You will right there try to reflect who you're in front of. You are like one of those people that when you're in Rome, you act like Romans. When you're at your house, you act like yourself. You are just so flexible with your approach to the world. And that's great. So why is there a problem? Isn't that a good thing? Well, basically, you're not fair to yourself. You constantly set yourself up to fail in the sense of putting yourself out there, exposing yourself too much. Or I know a lot of Sagittariuses are like little Casper ghosts. They're afraid to put themselves out there, afraid to try their own thing, afraid to make their mark, hiding behind certain skills that are just basic instead of going out there and being the star they really are. You're not honest and open and fair with the way you put yourself in society to begin with. I know that you put yourself out there feeling like you're behind in fashion or not enough with this or don't know enough of this language. And it's just all based on how you're not enough to begin with. And what happens is that's what happens in society. Although Sagittarius are the most brilliant people I know, you very rarely hear about famous ones, honestly. There is a couple of them. I know big ones like Taylor Swift. Okay, fine. The biggest one, but that's the Jupiter right there. It's either no one and then Taylor Swift, something huge and gigantic. That represents the imbalance that you have with yourself when you throw yourself out there. And Taylor, the reason why she's successful is because she's just all out. Like, I am the best. She doesn't even stop. She just railroads it the other way. So by being fair to yourself, then you will have a fair representation of yourself in society. And then here comes what this week is about. What is your influence in society? Where are you an influencer? I don't think you ever own that. I never hear a Sagittarius say, I'm changing the world. I say, if anything, they're like, oh, maybe one handshake at a time. But I never hear from a Sag, I'm here to have a dent, to make a change. No, you just like to be these like sparkles in the background, not taking credit. But the thing is if you're the most diplomatic in the world, Jesus, will you please take credit and own what you're here to do in the world, because you are the fairest when it comes down to it. So this week, this new moon is about, how do you want to feel in the world? When you're out there in your world, whether it's in the office or on TV or in your own pep talk, I don't know what that was, wherever you happen to be, how do you feel in that moment? How do you feel to be you? What's the feeling you have of yourself and of your place in the world? And what do you think the world feels about you? That is what you want to imagine for that new moon. And what that will turn into is your faith in life, your character, your money, your attitude, and finally, your emotional security. Your emotional security all comes down to your faith in yourself and the world. You knowing where you make a difference, where you influence the world. By knowing you influence the world, you will know how to feel good about yourself. Crazy, huh? Now, the square is very important. The square with the sun in Scorpio says, you've got to love yourself when it comes to all questions of faith. So when you ask, can I do it? The response must be loving, period. If you don't love yourself in that response, what the astrology shows is your attitude goes right in the toilet. Your lack of faith, your lack of loving yourself when it comes to a matter of faith, turns into your really insecurity of thought. And you start going back and forth and bouncing all over the place. And you start to not really think that you're being intellectually fluid. And it all comes down to, according to astrology, you not loving yourself when you answer, do I have faith or not? So just love yourself and give yourself the benefit of the doubt. See what happens. We'll see you next week. Capricorn, your sense of balance and equality comes from your career. I know. I can't say you've been balancing your career. I would say, no offense, but out of all the signs, you're the one sign getting this completely incorrect, in the sense that you have never been fair when it comes to your career. You always expect much more than the rest of people. You expect yourself to be better than everyone else. You're always putting yourself at the low end of the scale, always, when it comes to your career. And I'm talking about Capricorns who are making millions of dollars do this. It doesn't matter how much evidence happens, you still do this. And so here's where it comes down to. You are not fair to yourself when you originally make the assignment. Your self-discipline is unfair. It's throwing your life out of balance. You're basically putting yourself on the line for far more than you really want to pay under the jurisdiction that you have to do it to be successful. And it's not what really makes you successful. What makes you successful is your genius about operations and making decisions and your authority. That's what makes you successful. It's not that you do twice as much as the next person. And so your career is based on how honest and fair you are with yourself and with your decision making and the things you do to go forward. So that's important. A lot of Capricorns I know not happy with their career ever. I mean, I just haven't heard it very often, to be honest. But it comes down to this week, your legacy. You've got to be clear and fair about what your legacy is going to be. I've known Capricorns who are on the one side, they think they're the next Jesus Christ, not kidding, but in business, or some Capricorns who go all the opposite. They want to be like the best humanitarian there is, owning nothing, taking nothing. Again, huge Libra imbalances. It's like, can't you find the middle? So I guess in some regards, you've got to find the middle when it comes to your legacy, that no matter how magnificent you are, you come across being above average. Now, I'm not saying you can't be more. I'm saying to balance that out, you've got to be above average, and that's it. Now, the feeling of that new moon is whether or not how you feel about your legacy. Do you feel proud about your legacy? Do you feel accomplished? Or do you have other feelings like it's not enough, I could have done better, all that sort of stuff? Because Capricorn will talk themselves out of a compliment faster than any other sign. All right. So when you feel your real legacy, when you feel what it's going to be, and it's not cheating yourself to feel that way, that's what sets up your public reputation. It sets up your faith in yourself. It sets up your personality. It sets up your ability to make money. And it sets up your overall attitude on life. In other words, by not owning a fair idea of what your legacy is, you, in fact, are not able to keep a straight mind and positivity whatsoever. Now, the square is very important because this is something you need to know. When it comes to how you love yourself, when you put yourself in the public, how loving are you of yourself? Do you sit there and make sure you feel good and you're all ready to jam and you're just going out there in your best, and your best twinkle shoes? Or are you going out there with expectation, feeling behind these corporations, behind that? And so the truth is, I don't think you're very loving when you push yourself on the stage. You're not loving when you push yourself onto the stage. And what the astrology shows is if you don't do that, okay, then you will not make any money. What? That's right. Pluto square says if you don't really aren't loving to when you put yourself out on the stage, you will not be self-worthy. You will not be able to hold self-worth. So your self-worth is completely determined by your public self and not the way the world sees you, the way you love yourself when you put yourself out there in the world. Think about it. Aquarius, when it comes to Libra, it comes down to really your belief in yourself. And strangely enough, although Aquas come across like they know it all, they don't play that in the background. They go back and forth about whether or not they believe in themselves, whether they believe they can do it, if they believe it's possible. Always holding up that judgment and procrastinating the judgment, by the way. I don't think you ever get to the point where you honestly, know or don't know that you believe in yourself. You just it's just a never-ending sort of a, jury, a jury deliberating, frankly. So what you have got to do is be fair about believing in yourself. For one, if you believe in yourself and there's no evidence not to, then stop right there. You don't have to stack the other side. No one's paying attention or actually even keeping the counts. Only you are, okay? Which is noble, but also self-destructive in a way. And so if you don't believe in yourself in a fair way, in other words, give myself a chance. We'll see how it works. We'll see what the evidence ends up showing. If you're not fair about how you believe in yourself, then you won't believe in life, unfortunately. And what's even more important, you won't live your life purpose because your life purpose is all based on belief. And that's what this week is about. This week is about you identifying your purpose. Now, I know what you're worried about. You're not going to get it perfect the first time. Of course not. I've been redefining my purpose every time the sun goes into my 9th house, I redefine it even again. And I thought I do it so well, by the way, but no, because life brings us, these new lessons and things like that. So it's time now with this new moon to go, what do I feel like my purpose is? What does this purpose feel like? Does it feel responsible? Does it feel dignified? What's it feel like? And this is important because this makes sense. If you're the innovators, of course your purpose has to be strong. Of course, if you're going to innovate the rest of the world, you better not innovate the world unless you know what your purpose is, right? Don't tell us how to be better if you don't know what your purpose is, right? So by knowing your purpose, this sets up for the next 6 new moons. You will therefore know exactly where your career must go. And you will know exactly what your relationship to society will be. And you'll know exactly your faith in God if you know your purpose. You'll also know exactly the character to be moment to moment. And that's what Pluto's been working on. And then lastly, you'll know that you deserve abundance. So you don't know you deserve it. And it comes down to the fact that you're not clear on your purpose. You're not clear on what it is. And so you don't know if you should be paid. Big time stuff. Now, that says the square, which happens, has to do with your loving yourself when you decide something, okay? Every time you decide something, it must come from a father or motherly love inside you. You have to be loving. Every decision has to be a loving decision, the most loving decision for you, whether it's a decision to buy a car or change a job. And overall, this is what needs to affect your whole career. Your entire career needs to be very clear based on what you love about yourself and therefore what you can accomplish. And what the square tells us is it's right in the, Aquarius, punching right in the kisser, because Pluto is in Aquarius. And so that means if you are not really self-loving, when you make a decision for yourself, then you're an asshole to yourself when you treat yourself a certain way. Your behavior to yourself is directly related to the decisions you make for yourself. If you're unloving in your decisions, you'll be unloving in your self-treatment. And as a result, not get the person you want out of yourself or the performance. So think about it. Next time you make a decision, ask your heart for an endorsement. Pisces. Pisces, where do you use fairness and justice? Well, believe it or not, is in your boundaries. I don't know. And it really comes down to your boundaries with yourself. You know, Libra is the part where we go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And that's pretty much a Pisces when it comes to boundaries. One day you're open to it, one day you're not. One day you'll sleep with her, one day you won't. Back and forth, the wall just keeps moving to the point where, like, what shape are you? We can't really get our hands around you because you just don't have anything that stays the same when it comes to rules, right? And that pisses people off too, by the way. A lot of people, what they don't like about Pisces is that you seem to get away with everything, right? Because your rules always change on the fly. It's funny, but it's cute. Now, that's really Libra. It's because you're not fair to yourself with your own rules to yourself. That's right. You don't make sure that your rules to yourself are fair and just. That means you're getting what you want and you're also getting or giving the world what they're asking for. And so find that balance between what the world asks for and what you need. Now, what happens is usually Pisces will just go crazy. Like they'll give the world everything it wants and then they'll rebel and give themselves everything they want. And then the world, everything they want. And so they just keep going back and forth where they're giving their wife or husband everything and then they're being selfish and taking everything and then et cetera, et cetera. So if you are fair with where you draw the line with yourself, draw a fair line. That means you don't go cold turkey. You know, that's not fair. I never thought cold turkey was fair. That's not fair. That's shocking to the system. Listen to Taurus. Take some time, spend some money, blend it out, be fair with the boundaries. Then you'll find that you will prevent the world from being unfair to you. The reason why the world is unfair and they take more, and the reason why you're afraid to fight that is because you're not strong about being fair to yourself. So you don't demand it in the world and with others. And so you tend to either take too much from the world and be, scoundrels that we hear about in astrology therapy, or, on the other side, completely fair to society and feeling just shut down and taken advantage of by everyone. Now, that leads us to what this week is about. This week is about you've got to be fair when it comes to changing your life, okay? I think Pisces have not changed their life the way they want to because they're not fair to themselves to begin with. And so your change of life has got to be balanced and tranquil and fair and take the time it needs. Gentle Venus energy, high degrees of Libra. And what this says is if you're not gentle with your transitions in life, then you think the future sucks. You don't want to go outside. You don't want to talk to anyone. And it's the attitude that comes from being so unfair to yourself and being unfair to yourself when it comes to transitions. All right. Now, this brings us to this square that happens. The square with the sun in Scorpio has to do with loving yourself when it comes to believing yourself. Do you love yourself when you ask yourself, I believe? Is there love there? Or is there like strict judgment? Because Scorpio can be cold, okay? Cold. But you've got to be loving when you ask yourself, do I believe? Give yourself the benefit of the doubt. I mean, I'm going to tell you what to do. If you have love in your heart when you ask yourself you believe, you're going to pull it off. Now, if you do that, that means that you're going to be able to have faith. That's right. By not loving yourself in a belief, you will end up lacking faith. That's how the two come together. Crazy, huh? So next time you ask yourself if you believe, it doesn't matter if you do or don't, just be loving. And you'll find that you have faith in yourself and therefore the universe. Being the spiritual people you're meant to be. So to close this week and to wrap up this topic, I want to talk about the status of our world today. Would you say that the world is unfair? Would you say that it's become untrustworthy? That justice is not being served? That there's this incredible one side that gets everything and the other side is deprived? Well, frankly, my friend, it's because of what we just talked about in these horoscopes. All 12 signs have a way of being unfair to themselves, and then they're shocked when the world is unfair to them. If we really want to see the world become a better place, you don't have to run for Congress. You don't have to necessarily picket anywhere or pay some politician. If you are just fair to yourself, you will make it a rule on earth to be fair. That's how it works. We create our own reality. And so if you simply just follow that step, not only do you see that it spreads to your whole life, what you may not realize is it spreads to the whole world. Because once we are fair to ourselves, then we don't stand for injustice. We just can't. We work so hard for ourselves. We can't help but want that care to go on to the world. So think about it. It's a way of saving the earth by saving yourself and being fair. All right, friends. Well, there's a couple things I ask of you in return for our work here. One is to consider something, the 40 days of trust and, the 40 days of truth and purpose. Let's do this again. The 40 days of truth and purpose. This is a 40-day program at Serious Joy, which I have to say, honestly, is the most genius thing I've ever done. And I'm just giving myself props here because I realized one day that in Scorpio, it's impossible to lie to yourself. Try it. There's a side of you with Scorpio that just knows. That area of Scorpio that knows a liar, well, it'll call yourself out. And so we realized, we should do a program where you look at the things in your life that are tough to look at for 40 straight days, according to your astrology, in Scorpio, where you can't lie to yourself. And what we found is not only do you find your truth, you find your purpose. And that's the one thing that people are always asking me in a reading. First question, can you please tell me my life purpose? I'm amazed that people don't know it because I happen to know mine, but that's me. I was working on it for a long time in past lives, I think. That's why. So you will come away knowing your purpose. And when you know your purpose, my God, you're a new force to work with. In fact, everyone I've talked to, everyone who's come back to me about that program has just raved about it, how it changed their life, how from a simple journaling exercise, they found who they really were, stopped the debate, and they also figured out exactly what they're here to do. It's powerful and it's affordable. You can go to siriusjoy.academy and purchase your ticket now. By the way, started in Scorpio, get her done, take advantage of that energy. Also, the New World Order. That's right. This is the lecture I'm doing, a very important one, talking about how we have been, I think, missold on what the New World Order is. In fact, it's not spelled N-E-W, it's spelled K-N-E-W. It's not something new, it's something we've always known. And it's actually a certain group of people that are trying to call it new because they don't want to do what we know it's going to be. So I'll give a lecture on how this will unfold in the months ahead, meaning what we're about to go through with the Trump administration next year. We're about to go through, I think, with world stuff next year. I'm laying it all on the line. And most importantly, if you want, there's a workbook series afterwards, a workshop where you can take your chart and you will find what your purpose is in this new world order. So we all are here to play a certain role. Find out yours. Come on down to sensechristopher.com and sign up for the New World Order, or go to newworldorder.xyz. That's another way to get there, straight there. All right. So friends, if you don't have the money, I understand. I've been waiting for you for 20 years to give me money, but it hasn't really happened. We try to sell things. It doesn't always work. Yet you come every week and you watch. So here's 3 things you can do for us that are absolutely free. One is follow us on social media. The follow helps, okay? Because what's happening is social media is not sharing us with other people because you aren't sharing us with other people or aren't following it yourself. It really helps. It's simple. It's just a click of the mouse. Also, share us with friends, especially millennials. Millennials are ready for this now. They need to know, they need to be informed, they need to be empowered because they're an important generation. So please share it with a millennial or simply comment on our content. Do you know that we have 500,000 people on YouTube who are subscribed, who authentically hit subscribe, and YouTube never tells them that we have a show on the air? It's because people aren't commenting. They're not interacting. So as far as YouTube is concerned, we're a dead channel because people don't write comments. So please, even if it's negative, I'll take it. Please write a comment and tell us what you think. It would help us so much. So those are 3 things you can do for us, and we appreciate it. Also, don't forget, if you thought this was good advice or some helpful advice, can you imagine when you get it 7 days a week? That's siriusjoy.com. So for $3.99, you can try this life coaching approach. We are the only astrology app that life coaches you day by day. And how can we get it right? Because we have your date of birth. We know everything about you. So come to siriusjoy.com and give it a try. All right, friends. Thank you for listening. I'll see you next week. Until then, I love you. Live, love, be.